Virginia Pearce, Director of the Utah Film Commission, thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
Thanks for having me.
Utah has had close to 1,000 movies shot here. I mean, beyond the picturesque, I mean, you can point a camera in just about any direction and it's a beautiful shot. Beyond that, why is it that Utah's film industry is going so well? Why does Hollywood have a love affair with Utah?
Well, obviously, the locations, as you mentioned, is probably the #1 draw. But what we always talk about are the fact that it's close to LA, so easy to get in and out of. And we've been in the industry a long time, really since, you know, the early Westerns of the 30s and 40s. And we have a lot of experience and a lot of history in film. And I think that shows on film and gets other filmmakers excited about it.
For those who don't know, how far back does the history go in Utah's film industry?
Really, I think you can thank John Ford and John Wayne for bringing the first really big films here, The Searchers and Stagecoach. She wore a yellow ribbon. There's a lot of classic Westerns that were shot down in Monument Valley and in around Moab, Cedar City. I mean, there's really pockets of fascinating film history throughout the state.
Now, the pace of shooting in Utah has kind of ebbed and flowed through the years. What causes those fluctuations, and what does the Utah Film Commission do about that?
Well, we've seen some impacts on the industry for a variety of reasons. We obviously had the Westerns when Hollywood was just realizing that they could go outside of California, and they wanted the realism of an actual place. And then we had another big bump when we had Touched by an Angel and Everwood and some great network television series here in the early 2000s. And then the industry kind of changed once we got film incentives, which is really a nature of the business now, and it happens around the world where most states and countries offer some sort of business incentive for production companies to shoot in their location. And so when that started to become a thing across the world, then production companies started to look at the bottom line along with the location. And then Utah developed its own incentive program, which is where now you see us kind of coming back into play.
The competition between states is pretty intense when it comes to getting production companies to come and shoot. Number one, how intense is it, and how does Utah fare in that competition?
The competition's definitely fierce. We get a lot of calls from people that say, I'm looking at Utah, I'm looking at Vancouver, I'm looking at New Mexico, I'm looking at South Africa. You know, how can Utah compare, and what can you offer me? And a lot of the same reasons, you know, we tell film productions a lot of the same reasons that we choose to live and play and do business here are the same reasons that they want to come here and shoot. It's beautiful, it's easy to get around, it's easy to do business, it's close to, you know, some major markets, and you can get snow-capped mountains and Red Rock all within an hour. I mean, those are all the appeal that keep us here. It's also the appeal that keeps them coming.
Now, I know that Colorado has an incentive program, so does Nevada, tax incentives and cash rebates and that kind of thing. How do they compare to what Utah has to offer?
So if you look at kind of the western states, New Mexico definitely leads the charge. They have about $50 million that they can give away per year. And you know, we're probably next in that. We have 8 million, so you can see the disparity.
Oh, wow.
And Colorado and Nevada both have smaller programs, and they do a lot of independent film. But you know, in order to compete with the bigger states and to get the bigger projects, you really have to be able to offer some kind of incentive. Beyond
the incentives and beyond the picturesque, what does Utah have to offer the film industry that brings people here?
We have some of the best crew and support systems and infrastructure that I would say in the western states. We've got crew that have been in the business a really long time. They're super professional. They really know everything from a major network television series to a small indie. They can work all sides. And I also think, again, Utah is a friendly place, and we're film friendly too, and film companies definitely see that.
How big a part does the film industry play in Utah's economy? What kind of numbers are we talking about?
So when you look at the overall motion picture industry, that includes kind of everything that goes on across the state, it's about $320 million in taxable sales. So it's a good chunk of our diverse economy, as we like to say, and I think more importantly, it adds to the cultural conversation. You know, we've got Sundance Institute and Sundance Film Festival in our backyard. We're obviously a film-loving state. We've got such a great film history that people kind of know film when they think about Utah.
How big of a role does the Sundance Film Festival play in Utah's film industry?
So I think it's definitely an aspirational thing for a lot of filmmakers. They see that in their backyard. They get access to industry that they may not have had the chance to meet otherwise. Sundance has been a great supporter of ours and a partner over the years, and we always are looking for new ways to encourage local talent and be able to help them get a leg up.
Now, there are a bunch of categories in the film industry here in Utah. I'm thinking of feature films, TV series, documentaries, video games as well. Which of those areas has the most activity in them, and which is most lucrative for the state?
So currently, I think we're probably, I mean, we do have a lot going on. You look at the video game and the new VR, there's so much great tech happening here, and I think a lot of interest in those new technologies, and we're always trying to find ways to encourage that. But as far as what's happening right now, we have lots of television series. So we've got Kevin Costner in the state. He's been shooting Yellowstone for the last couple of years. And we have Disney shooting the new version of High School Musical. That's going to be a television series as well. So, and those are great because they're longer, they're more jobs, the wages tend to be a little bit higher. So we like those, but we also love to see the smaller independent projects because it sort of feeds the pipeline. And also we love to see projects that have shot in Utah show up at Sundance. So we need some of those projects to be here as well.
So if you had your choice between a major motion picture and a television series that was going to be shot here in Utah, which one of those is better for the state's economy and exposure?
I think it so depends on the project. You know, if we had a major feature film that had great talent attached and it was going to shoot somewhere in the beautiful locations and really showcase those locations to the world, that would probably go a long way, because not only are they spending money in the state, but they're also, you know, it's a billboard for the state, essentially. It becomes a tourist attraction. So we like to see those, but we also love to see talent development. We have a new director that's filming right now that there's a lot of buzz around him and the talent that he created and the projects that he's doing, and that's good for us too on an industry side, for them to say, oh, you know, he chose to shoot in Utah, what's going on there, and, you know, maybe we should look at that. So it's hard to say.
In recent years, the Utah legislature and its approach to wilderness issues resulted in the outdoor retailer show moving from Utah after a long time being here. Tell me about how politics and the culture here in Utah plays into how many films are shot here and which kinds.
You know, I think we've been really grateful to the state leadership and legislature because they have been really supportive of the film industry, and I think that goes to looking at the impact of Sundance Institute on the state, looking at, you know, we want to see film, Utah represented in film, and I'm always looking for new ways to increase that impact. But so far, you know, people want to see the program remain, and they're excited about it.
Do you ever see filmmakers come to you and say, you know what, we just don't agree with your stance on the wilderness or your stance on abortion or liquor laws or whatever it might be, and say, you know, thanks, but no thanks, we'll go shoot in New Mexico? You know?
I mean, I think every state has its issues, and so far the projects have been able to see that, you know, there are a lot of different issues, especially in the West. I mean, when you look at Yellowstone and the new West issues that Taylor Sheridan and Kevin Costner are talking about, they're talking about land use rights and Native American rights and oil rights and tourism encroaching on the way of life, and all those things are things that we wrestle with. And so I feel like actually film sometimes helps maybe help people talk through those issues.
Tell the story.
Yeah, and tell the story.
Yeah. There has been a spotlight on sexual harassment in the movie industry in recent years. How has the Harvey Weinstein episode reverberated here in Utah, and what is being done here locally to fix that problem?
I definitely care deeply about that issue, and when all of those allegations came to light, I wanted to do something to take a stand and make sure that we were protecting crews and cast and film production, just making everyone feel safe. And so we actually created a policy that requires film production companies to have a workplace harassment policy in place if they're going to shoot in the state. And all the production companies were super grateful for that, and either they already had one and were happy to share it, or we've helped them, you know, point them into some resources where they could create one. And I think it's definitely opened the dialogue. It's definitely always, you know, there's always more to do. I always want to see more diversity, both in front and behind the camera. And that's something that I'm working on. There's a couple of really great organizations that we've helped start here so that we can see, especially gender diversity, and now we're working on, you know, ethnic and cultural diversity as well.
You, as a woman, are the head of the Utah Film Commission. You're the director. Are women in Utah being able to rise to the upper echelons of the movie industry here?
I'm definitely seeing a lot of female documentary filmmakers, which is really great because there's such great stories out there, and they're making some really fantastic choices. I would love to see more narrative filmmakers, female filmmakers, and we're working on projects and grants and other programs that can help foster interest and you know, a better pipeline for women once they graduate from college. Is there necessarily a place for them to go? So I'm working on programs for that.
What kind of an effect does gender diversity have on the final product in the movie industry?
Well, I like to look at, you know, if you live in a town, do you want to see the same person every day, or do you want to see a lot of different people? And
Depends
I think,
on whether you like them or not,
right?
You know?
And I think almost everyone would say, I want to see a lot of different people, and we want to see a lot of different stories. So when you get a diverse viewpoint behind the camera, you bring, by nature of that, you bring diversity in. I think especially women are interested in working in a more 50-50 workplace, and so they're going to make sure that there are opportunities for women on the crew. And I think there's a lot of interest in, you know, in camera work and electric work and construction. I mean, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be an actor, you don't have to be a director. There's so many ways to be involved in film, and we want to make sure everyone has access to all of that.
What would you say are the top 3 movies that have ever been made in Utah, and why would you say it?
Top meaning?
The best ones, whether it's creatively or at the box office, the highest profile.
Let's see. I mean, there's a few that we talk about a lot. I would say Forrest Gump, even though there wasn't a huge part, it was a very impactful part. Monument Valley and Highway 163. Running through that gorgeous road, you see lots and lots of tourists who want to go visit that place. You have to go with the John Ford, John Wayne, The Searchers. It's a classic. I just rewatched it, and actually it really holds up, and it was fascinating, and it's something that people should see if they haven't. And the third one, I'm going to say my personal favorite, Thelma and Louise. Shot almost, you know, a lot on location in and around Moab. Such a great story, such a great impact that it had on both the film industry for women, and also just cultural, sort of a cultural touch point that you can look back to.
It's not unusual to find scenes of Utah in many films.
Yes.
Lots and lots of films. What would it take to have an entire film shot right here in Utah, complete with soundstage, complete with the soundtrack being recorded here? What does that take, and how far away from that are we?
Well, a lot of smaller independent films are already doing that, for sure. But when you look at, you know, do you want to see a major motion picture shoot start to finish? I think it would depend on, obviously, the locations would have to work. And we do have a stage, sound stage in Park City. The Utah Film Studios is a great asset for us. Post-production, a lot of filmmakers, if they're not from here, they want to go home and do their post-production closer to where they are. But I think what's helping change that is the internet, which has really changed the nature of the way that people work. And you can certainly send files back and forth. And I think more and more our talent that we have here in the post-production space has shown that, you know, work can get done anywhere. So.
If you wanted to go to work in the Utah film industry, do you have to have a college degree, or can you just show up to a production company and say, here I am, put me to work?
You know, you don't have to have a degree. A lot of people have gone into the industry in lots of different ways. I know my career path was definitely a circuitous one. We have some resources, some great resources on our website, and I think it depends on which way you want to go. If you're looking to be a director or a producer, I think the best way to do that is to start directing and producing and making your own films and really finding out what works for you, and you know, I just jump in there and get it done.
Look into your crystal ball for me, and 10, 15 years down the road, where do you see Utah's film industry at that point?
I think it's going to be really fascinating to watch just the film industry in general in the next 10 or 15 years. As we've seen, it's changed so much in the past 5 years, even with the different platforms and ways that we access content on our phones and everywhere we are, which has really opened the doors for a lot more diversity in storytelling. You're not just having to see movies that are on the big screen. You can see something that more appeals to a niche market. And so I would hope that we're seeing a lot more specific, diverse stories. I'm hoping to see more Utah talent involved in that. We're really working toward helping filmmakers here get a leg up, so more Utah stories get told.
Well, Virginia Pearce, Director of the Utah Film Commission, thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
So nice to be here. Thank you.